Mormonism teaches that there are two priesthoods, the Aaronic priesthood and the Melchizedek priesthood. The LDS Church claims that both of these priesthoods were restored to the earth by Joseph Smith and are necessary for the life of the church. Every worthy Mormon man is expected to hold both the Aaronic and Melchizedek priesthoods. But is this biblical? Did Jesus hold both of these priesthoods? Number one, Jesus did not have the Aaronic priesthood. The Bible tells us that Jesus is our high priest. However, the Bible also tells us that under the law of Moses, the only people allowed to hold the Aaronic priesthood had to be descendants of Aaron from the tribe of Levi. Speaking of Jesus, Hebrews 7 says, "For the one of whom these things are spoken belonged to another tribe, from which no one has ever served at the altar. For it is evident that our Lord was descended from Judah, and in connection with that tribe, Moses said nothing about priests." Jesus wasn't a Levite. He was from the tribe of Judah. And no one from the tribe of Judah has ever held the Aaronic priesthood, including Christ himself. In other words, Jesus did not hold the Aaronic priesthood. So then how could he be called our high priest? Well, the author of Hebrews goes on to tell us, Jesus is a priest after the order of Melchizedek. On his way home from rescuing his nephew Lot, Abraham met Melchizedek, king of Salem. Melchizedek is called a priest of the Most High God, demonstrating that priests existed in the Old Testament outside of the law of Moses. Not only this, but Hebrews explains that Melchizedek's priesthood was greater than Aaron's priesthood. And Jesus' priesthood is kind of like the Melchizedek priesthood. It's outside of the law of Moses, and it's better than the Aaronic priesthood. Number three, Jesus is the only one who has the Melchizedek priesthood. Jesus has become a priest, not on the basis of a legal requirement concerning bodily descent, but by the power of an indestructible life. Jesus became a high priest after the order of Melchizedek, not because he was a descendant of Aaron and Levi, but because he lived a sinless life and was the only human who could be the perfect mediator between God and man. But more than this, only Jesus has been appointed by God to be our high priest forever. Hebrews 7 says, "And it was not without an oath. For those who formerly became priests were made such without an oath. But this one," referring to Jesus, "was made a priest with an oath by the one who said to him, 'The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever.'" Hebrews continues by explaining that the former priests were many in number because they were prevented by death from continuing in office. But he holds his priesthood permanently because he continues forever. None of us could ever be perfect priests because A, we're sinful, and B, we will one day die because of those sins. But Jesus was sinless, rose from the dead, and will never die again. Why is Aaron not our high priest today? Because Aaron was a sinner, and he died because of those sins. So were all of his descendants. All of the high priests have sinned and died. But Jesus alone is our perfect, immortal high priest. For the law appoints men in their weaknesses as high priests, but the word of the oath, which came later than the law, appoints a son who has been made perfect forever. Number four, Jesus' priesthood replaces the Aaronic priesthood. The author of Hebrews calls the Aaronic priesthood weak and useless and explains that it has vanished away like the rest of the Old Covenant. Hebrews says, "Now if perfection had been attainable through the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people received the law, what further need would there have been for another priest to arise after the order of Melchizedek, rather than one named after the order of Aaron?" We shouldn't expect anyone to hold the Aaronic priesthood anymore, because Jesus has a new and better priesthood. The LDS Church's teaching about the two priesthoods being restored to the earth by Joseph Smith is not biblical. The Bible makes it abundantly clear that Jesus never held the Aaronic priesthood, and that he is the only one who has been made a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek.